The European Union has long attempted to standardize how civil and commercial disputes are resolved across its member states. The 2008 Mediation Directive was designed to address a mechanical problem. National court systems were facing bottlenecks. The goal was to divert a massive volume of civil cases away from judges and into out-of-court mediation. In 2017, the European Parliament passed a resolution to assess the real-world impact of that directive. This chart illustrates the Parliament's primary finding. Across the Union, mediation is utilized in less than 1% of cases that reach court. The vast majority of citizens still default to traditional litigation. This lack of adoption shows that a purely voluntary framework failed to shift the existing legal culture. Parties simply continue to ignore mediation on their way to trial. Despite these ambitious legislative goals, the EU has yet to provide its citizens with a frequently used alternative to the courtroom. But the failure isn't universal. There is a single geographical exception to this union-wide trend. Italy is the only member state with a highly functioning mediation ecosystem that consistently exceeds the 1% average. Italy's success suggests a specific mechanical difference in their national policy that the rest of Europe lacks. Identifying that difference is critical, especially in the domain where the current failure is most damaging: cross-border family disputes. When international families are trapped in prolonged litigation, the logistical friction and legal costs are immense. The adversarial nature of a courtroom often worsens the conflict rather than resolving it. To fix this deficit, the Union must move away from its fragmented, voluntary approach and toward a structural legislative shift. Legal scholars and policy analysts have spent years investigating why the 2008 framework failed to standardize family mediation. The root of the problem lies in the technical structure of Directive 2008/52/EC itself. EU law distinguishes between non-binding recitals, which offer guidance, and enforceable articles, which are mandatory. Family mediation is completely absent from the binding, enforceable articles of the directive. Instead, family cases are only mentioned in recitals 10 and 21. By placing these provisions in the guidance section, the EU made them suggestions rather than requirements. Relegating family disputes to non-binding recitals meant there was no real standardization across the Union, making a systemic failure inevitable. This textual omission led to legislative fragmentation, as 27 member states created their own conflicting rules. Today, the requirements for mediator qualifications and training vary wildly from one border to the next. Because ethical standards are not synchronized, it's impossible to guarantee a uniform experience for international families. This deep fragmentation results in a complete and total inability to seamlessly enforce a mediation agreement across different national borders. Even when an international family reaches an agreement, they often have to re-enter the court system just to get that agreement legally recognized in another member state. Without uniform enforceability, the current framework is a procedural hurdle rather than a help for families. The solution proposed by the Parliament involves a structural change to how cases enter the legal system. The legislative fix rewrites Article 5.2, moving from an opt-in to an opt-out system. In our current reality, mediation is a voluntary detour. Most parties simply drive past it and head straight to court. The proposed opt-out model restructures the pathway. The direct line to the court is initially blocked. Parties are required to attend an initial mediation session. This is the only way to unlock the formal litigation process. This form of structural requirement, mandatory initial sessions, is exactly why Italy succeeded where the rest of the Union failed. Relying on voluntary interest hasn't worked. Institutionalizing a mandatory gateway is the only proven method to increase mediation volume. Simply forcing parties into a room isn't enough. Without quality controls, mandatory sessions won't lead to lasting resolutions. The Article 5.2 rewrite must be combined with strict baseline regulations. This means replacing fragmented national rules with a synchronization of standards. The Union needs a unified baseline for how mediators are trained and qualified. We also need a protocol that ensures a family settlement reached in one state is instantly enforceable in every other member state. Ultimately, this synchronization process effectively turns family mediation from an informal talk into a robust, legally binding mechanism. The opt-out model drives participation, but only synchronized standards can guarantee the legal weight of the results. The 2008 Mediation Directive failed to meet its goals, leaving courtrooms clogged and international families in a state of uncertainty. By combining the opt-out mechanism with synchronized standards, the EU can finally fix the flaws in its original framework. Real access to justice requires recognizing that for many family conflicts, the traditional courtroom is often the worst place to seek a resolution.